Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today I'd like to talk about what is the value of a watch. I think there's a saying that the fool knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. And sometimes I find that to be true among watch collectors. And talking about value, we can talk about the horological value of a watch. And a horological value has to do with the functionality, the complexity, the craftsmanship, the difficulty of what kind of watchmaker would it take. For example, I was talking to Stephen Forsey of the Forsey Goubel, I guess, or is it Goubel and Forsey? One of the two, one of the top watchmakers in the world, really. And I asked him, I said, the remontoire d'égalité is this wonderful, interesting mechanical movement. I said, how come more watches or more watchmakers don't have it? He says, because it's really hard to do. And so that's why there aren't as many. So that's one kind of value. So when we talk about the horological value, uh, the watch that I have pictured there is by Roger Smith. It's called the Series 3. And it's you can almost touch the quality of the workmanship throughout that watch and looking at it. And this goes to the aesthetic value. And the aesthetic value has to do with some kind of virtue of its capacity to elicit pleasure. This has to do with the finishing, the design. The watch I have on, this is a Vacheron Constantin Historique American 1921, I think. Anyway, and it's tilted to one side. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I love that watch," and I don't know if they know anything about how it works or anything else, but they like the looks of it. So aesthetic value, other kinds of aesthetic values can be any number of things that you look at a watch, you say, I like that. The third type of value is personal value. Now, this is based on personal experiences and relationships and so forth. For example, it might be your father's or your grandfather's watch, maybe a birth year, a watch with a birth year, or a wedding watch, any kinds of thing like that. So that's another kind of value. Now, the final thing is not a value, it's the price. It's simply what you pay, the amount you pay for the watch. So when we talk about resale, we're talking about resale price. And some people like to buy watches because they can get back from it what they paid for it, sometimes even more. But we're not talking about price, we're talking about value. All right, so let's take a look at some of these. Now, the first one, to me anyway, more than anything else, is the movement. It's got to have a good movement, an interesting movement, something about the movement that's special. The one that's pictured there is a movement, it's called the Caliber HMC 907, but the real heart of the movement is the Agengraph chronograph inside of that, which is just almost revolutionary. Here are a couple other watches. This one is a retrograde by Daniel Roth. Now, it has a retrograde. It goes from here down and then back again, and it's just sort of an interesting watch with an interesting movement to do that. The other thing is, it has to do with a watchmaker, Daniel Roth. His watches sell for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. This one wasn't. This was from one of the ones that in the early 2000s, when he had his own company, before it was bought by Bulgari. Now, the thing about this watch is the watchmaker. Daniel Roth was probably, more than any other single person, the one who helped bring Breguet back. Breguet was on sort of the ropes, really, and I think it's in the 1970s. They had a couple not so good sports watches at the time, and the Chaumet brothers bought it, and then they hired Daniel Roth and some other top people, and they helped bring it back. So when you, it's not just the watch, but it's the watchmaker as well. Another kind of thing has to do with a movement that has something unique about it. Now, one of the movements that I couldn't afford, but I was interested in, is the equation of time. And this is a watch by Longines, and it was a special watch they made for some anniversary they had, and they have an enamel dial and everything. And it wasn't that much. I mean, Longines are not in high horology watches, but they're excellent watches. They're really quite good. And this one is unusual, and it was the only one I could afford that had equation of time. And so when you look at the different kinds of things, that's a value, not because of the price, because neither one of those watches was that expensive. Now, the other element is finding exceptional horology, what I call uncommon watches. Now this watch is called the Chaumet Dandy Arty Open Face. Now, who would ever name a watch and expect them guys to buy it called a Dandy, a Chaumet Dandy? Now, the Chaumet, they go back, they made the Empress Josephine, I think, the jewelry for her. They made the jewelry on the hilt of Napoleon's sword. They go way back. And then up to the Chaumet brothers, who bought Breguet and helped turn it around. But you never hear about them in watches anymore, and that's probably one of the reasons, is that they almost went to jail. Both of the Chaumet brothers, they tried to corner the diamond market and went broke, and somebody else ended up buying Chaumet. Now, the thing about this watch is that I got this not because of Chaumet or Napoleon, but rather because it had that movement. It's called the AGH 4202, and it has these gears in it called the Agones gears, and they have little springs in the teeth, and so there's no slippage. And this particular watch had two great big good size Agones gears in it, and because it was open face, I could see it. And it's got this thing that looks like the Rue de Paris Ferris wheel, and it turns slowly and smoothly. And the reason it's so smooth in its turning is that the Jean-Marc Viderec, who invented it and patented, by the way, he was the first watchmaker to win the Watchmaker of the Year by the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève. He's one of the top watchmakers, and here's this watch. This is such a funny watch. It's very hard to wind because the crown is up here, and then you can figure out how to get it wound. And then when you set it, it goes backwards, and so you have to set it to backwards. I mean, it keeps excellent time. That's the funny thing about it. And it has this wonderfully smooth Ferris wheel. It's a very, very, very formal watch. I mean, with patent leather and so forth. But, not a lot of people are going to say, oh, boy, I want to get a Dandy. That's for sure. But the value isn't in the brand. It's that particular brand, even though Chaumet is really quite good as a jewelry brand, it's not known that well as a watch brand. Now, another value is what I call a unique complications. You want to watch because it has unique complications. And one unique complication is called the minute repeater. And I don't know why. I mean, my hearing is shot. A minute repeater doesn't do me much good because they have a little chime of some sort. And here are two examples of minute repeaters. One is a Bulgari Octo Finissimo minute repeater, $194,000. That's a lot of money. But most minute repeaters are in that neighborhood. There is one relatively new one In fact, almost brand new, 2023 new. I think it probably came out last year or so. It's a Christopher Ward London C1 bel canto, and it's a minute repeater, 37:38. It's a lot less money, and but that's the other thing too, is that the value is, and this is to me important. It's not on how much you pay for the watch, but rather where's the value? Well, the value in these two is a minute repeater. One costs a whole lot and one doesn't. So the same thing is true, just like my equation of time watch. Most of them, are way expensive, not mine. So when looking and talking about value, to me, that's where you find them. It's not, necessarily in a brand name or what price you can get on a resale, but something interesting about the watch. Now, some watches are just pure creative fun. Here's one that's in the current Grand Prix, one of the finalists. It's called Le Regulator Louis Arand and Constantin Chaikin. Now, Chaikin is a really top-notch watchmaker. He's a member of the AHCI, the Académie Horloger des Créateurs Indépendants. In other words, the independent watchmakers. And the other thing about this is that it has an interesting design called a regulator. Regulator is when the minute hand, the hour hand, and the second hand are all on separate pinions or in separate subdials. And so at the top there is the hour hand, that little round thing that moves around, and then the wavy hands in the middle, that's the minute hand, and at the bottom that the turning gear is the second hand. And it's just fun. It's just a fun watch. It's I think it probably has an ETA movement or a Salida movement in it. Louis Arand is sort of the watchmaker, and Constantin Chaikin would be the designer. It looks like a fun watch to have. You say, okay, where's the value in it? Well, the value is that you enjoy it, and it does. You can check off the regulator as one of in your collection. Now, one of the most popular complications is a complication I don't care for. I mean, I have really not a lot of use for a chronograph. I've had some and I've sold them. I think I have one left. I'm going to sell it. So that's so much for me in chronographs. Now, the complication is a very interesting complication. Somebody asked Carol Forestier Casapi, who was another winner of the Watchmaker of the Year. They asked her, what's more complicated, a tourbillon or a chronograph? And she said, by far, a chronograph. Chronographs are very complicated. And now the prices are a little higher. Now these, here you have three. One is Petermann Bedat chronograph Rattrapant. A Rattrapant is also called a split second, and they basically have two timings. So if you have two people running or something, or horses, and you want to time each one, you can start it with the first Rattrapant, the first second counter when the first one starts, and then count it with the second one, and then stop it the same way. The Singer Reimagined 1969 chrono. This watch has the Agenggraph movement in it, which is really the revolutionary chronograph that's available. And the third one is a Herbring 2 Chrono Felix top second. All three of these watches are finalists in the Grand Prix, and the prices that are listed below there are in Swiss francs, CHF or Swiss francs, 243,000. These are roughly they're close, a little more than dollars, so it'd be about 245 or so, $55 and about $8,000 dollars on those. But there's a lot of difference in the price, a great deal of difference. And that can depend on a lot of different things. Richard Harbring of Harbring 2 is a well-respected watchmaker. Singer isn't the watch, well, they are the watchmaker, but really they have Jean-Marc Vitorec's movement inside, and Peterman Badat are two young, really very talented watchmakers. So that's another value is in the chronograph. Are popular styles for I mean, that's in the essence of it, is the something about the watch that people like. They like the style. I'm not much into sports watches. I have one sports watch, and that's all I need. So, but there's a value. Now here are three that are, two of which are very popular, and one is popular, but in a different sort of level of popularity. And they also have values. All Rolex watches are certified chronometers, and certified chronometers mean they went through this special testing to show that they have really excellent timing. The Submariner is one of the popular models. It also has something that I put a lot of value on, and that's the parachrome hairspring. So that's part of the horological value. Why parachrome hairspring? It's great for anti-magnetic, and I think that's a good thing for a hairspring. And then they could have put in silicon, but I'm glad they didn't. Now the Omega Seamaster Diver 300 is another chronograph, but it has something special in it, and that's the George Daniels coaxial escapement. So that's another thing. On the other hand, it does have a silicon hairspring, which I don't think much of. That's my own peccadillo. Don't listen to me. Now the final one is the Groeneveld 1969 Deltaworks. This is one of the finalists in the current Grand Prix. And it's not listed as a chronometer or anything else, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were, because the Groeneveld brothers make such really excellent watches. And they're expensive and they're hard to get. I was looking up for one, and they're all sold out right now. There was a waiting list for every single one of them. So, what are you going to do? Anyway, so those are when we talk about values, we can talk about things like the style. There's a value in that. And in this particular case is the value of the chronometer, the value of the special hairspring, the value of the coaxial escapement, and the value of the known contemporary watchmakers. Anyway, along with all the other values we talked about. So I would really like to hear from you what you think is valuable, what you value in a watch. And one thing I got to say, it's not the price. It's a lack of price oftentimes. So this is an opportunity to subscribe if you like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the Art and Science of Watch Collection.